How's it going, guys? I thought I'd go ahead and get this review of Persona 2 Innocent Sin out of the way. Taking a while to play this game. It's a pretty short game, actually. I think it took me about 30 hours to complete. And I used an optimized guide to play through it. Since that's kind of become the habit I have whenever it comes to JRPGs. I always feel like I'm going to miss out on something big if I don't go through the JRPG with a good optimized guide. But anyway, I don't think it detracted from the experience very much. Obviously, it made the game a little bit easier than it would have been otherwise. But I'll get into that whenever I talk about the battle system. So let's start out by talking about the story. The story in this is a little bit weirder and a little bit darker than the later Persona games. And I haven't played Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, but I'd imagine that it's in the same vein because that's essentially just a sequel to this. But story is really good. You're basically these teenagers who group together and you're chasing down this terrorist organization called the Mass Circle. You're finding what they're all about, and you basically find out that they're a personified version of yourself whenever you're children, and they go into the whole child psychology kind of thing, and a lot is revealed about your past, and that's kind of informing the whole conflict in the narrative. The general tone of it is kind of like three torches were lit and four bells rang, and the hour of destiny was upon us. It's kind of like that creepy vibe, that kind of Edgar Allan Poe vibe, where you got like guys in black robes talking about destiny and shit, standing around a circle on the ground, like chanting like that. That's the general vibe of this. But other than that, the general tone is kind of teenager, like the later Persona games. All of your party members are teenagers. Um, I like all the protagonists. I think the game was a little bit unclear and heavy-handed with the story, and I don't know. A lot of the dialogue early on, especially, was written kind of poorly. Um, I don't know if the translators got used to the translating process while they were on the project, and they ended up actually becoming better towards the end. But it sounds like a reasonable explanation because the 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 sentences that they wrote early on are kind of awkward sounding. I can't think of any examples, but anyone who's played this knows how awkward the the writing is early on. It's really weird. But let's move on to the general structure of the game. So the game is kind of like later Persona games where you have city sequences where you travel around a city and go to places and talk to people. All of it though is not in 3D. You're just kind of this little point on a map, and you're traveling around talking to other points on the map. But I wasn't really turned off by that. I'm used to playing games from the 1990s, and so that kind of thing didn't really bother me very much. And so on the city thing, one of the cool things about the city is that one of the main features of this game is that rumors become reality. And it's cool to travel around the city and pick up on rumors and sometimes even start your own rumors. And by doing so, you can change reality. You can change reality by creating a rumor, and then new weapons and armor are available in a shop, for example, or new items are available. And it's really cool. I wish they had, continued on with that kind of rumor system because I think it's really interesting, and it's actually incorporated in the narrative later on. So I thought that was really cool. Um, but yeah, basically it's just the city sequences, which towards the end there are not very many of them, or it's mainly early on, and the dungeons. And the dungeons are cool. You get into turn-based combat with the enemies. We'll talk about the battle system in a second, but in the battles you have demon negotiation, just like in Persona 5, and also in some other Shin Megami Tensei games. And I really enjoy the negotiations. Although, because I used an optimized guide, I'd imagine that they were a lot easier than they would have been otherwise. Um, because it's really easy to piss these persona off if you don't know exactly what you're doing. Um, and and you're going to need to negotiate with these demons because they give you cards that you use in the Velvet Room to summon personas. And a lot of those personas are some of the best in the game, and you'll really need them later on. So, if you're not going to use an optimized guide, or you want to limit your use of the optimized guide to as little as possible, reserve it to just using it on finding out what kind of negotiation dialogues you need to have with your demons, because you're going to get a lot out of the personas that you're able to summon using their cards. The battle system is probably the worst feature in this game. It's once you know what to do, and once you know which spells are the most powerful, you end up just spamming them over and over again. And that's one of the critiques of the GameSpot review that I really agreed with. It's probably the only critique of the game in the GameSpot review that I actually agreed with. But the battle system can get annoying, can get frustrating. It's one of those games where I think there's a 1 out of 2 chance of escaping from battle, and so it's very, very probable that you won't be able to escape from battle after a few tries, and that's really tedious. And a lot of the animations are long. Even if you skip them using the skip feature, they're still long because the damage just pops up and it takes like whole seconds. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't feel it feels aged. It feels really aged. I don't think the battle system aged well. But speaking of not aging well, the game has a lot of tropes in it. A lot of them are really good though. It actually uses some tropes that I think more JRPGs need. A lot of the quirky, funny cutscenes that take place in between all the serious scenes kind of remind me of Chrono Trigger. That's kind of a good trope to have. But the bad tropes are basically involving the narrative, which I don't want to get too much into. I know I mentioned a little bit about some of the mid-story, but I don't want to spoil the latter portion of the game. But the main tropes that this game has is that basically at the end you just end up defying destiny again. Like, how many times have we seen defying destiny over and over and over again? And it's ludicrous because I'm not a libertarian at all, actually. I'm kind of hostile to libertarianism completely. I think that there are times when authority figures know better than you, and to have in your JRPG antagonists or protagonists that say that they know better than the godlike being just completely boggles my mind. Like, what? How are teenagers wiser than some kind of godlike being from another dimension? It doesn't make any sense, seriously. If there was a godlike being from another dimension that appeared, I would worship him. I would fucking worship. I would not assert my own individuality in that situation because he's better than me. He's fucking better than me. Okay, so just obey the godlike being. Jeez. Oh, God. It drives me crazy. But yeah, that's one of the main tropes in this game, and I don't like it very much. The reviews for this game are kind of low compared to other Persona games that came out later on, because some of the reviewers, they they did not realize that this is an old game. Like, you can't compare a game like this to a game that is coming out now. Clearly, it's going to be less polished. Clearly, it's going to be using old mechanics that are aged. But what you have to do is you have to change your perspective. You have to change your perspective back to that time period and try to use the standard the standard for that period when you're evaluating a game from from the 90s. Like, what other games came out during that period? Okay, so Final Fantasy VIII came out during that period. Chrono Cross came out in that period. Xenogears came out in that period. Um, games like that. So compared to those, I would give this game an 8.5 or something like that out of 10. I mean, I don't think that's an unfair score. Um, Again, a lot of the things in this game kind of bothered me. I don't think there were any problems with their narrative. Um, I usually notice those, and my review for Persona 5 had a lot of critiques, but this one doesn't have any critiques for it at all. But yeah, the game's good. Go out and play it. I'm looking forward to playing Eternal Punishment and maybe doing a first impressions on this channel whenever I get an opportunity to get around to that. So anyway, that's my review for Persona 2 Innocent Sin. I'll see you guys next time.